Hello, friends. Welcome back to English Classes Online. I am Benjamin, and in today's lesson, I am going to teach you how to answer Jamb comprehension questions. We shall be looking at the techniques, the steps to be taken in order to answer Jamb comprehension questions correctly, and we shall be illustrating this with 2019 Jamb English questions. If you are new to the channel, kindly subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell icon as well so that whenever videos are uploaded on this channel, you will have free access to all of them. So let's dive into the lesson right away and begin to learn how we can get it right. Now, this is the passage, one of the passages in the 2019 comprehension questions, but we are not going into it yet. These are the questions. Before we go into it, I want us to familiarize ourselves with the techniques. First, let's look at why students pick wrong answers in the Jamb comprehension questions. Now, let's look at the first reason. Rushing to answer questions you've not actually understood. That is one of the reasons. First, understand the question, understand what it means before you begin to answer the question. Number two, using sentiment. One of the options seems to be true based on your personal experience, but your personal experience is maybe outside the facts stated in the passage. So if you have to get it right, you must look for the evidence in the passage. I must emphasize that answers to Jamb comprehension questions are evidence-based. In other words, just like all other comprehension questions, whether you are talking of West African Senior School Certificate Examination or the National Examinations Council or even NAPTEP, no, comprehension questions always require evidence-based answers. You don't go outside the given passage and start bringing in ideas just because they sound cogent or reasonable. Now, the third reason is ambiguity caused by unfamiliar words in the passage. Sometimes you are confronted by words you don't know that are unfamiliar to you, and that makes the passage seem to be difficult to understand. Now, you can use an approach that I call the contextualization approach. This can help you to actually figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words. Now, what does it mean to contextualize? That word is derived from the word context. Is derived from the word context. Of course, you may have come across the word context. You can look at it here. Let's look at the simple word context. Now, what does context mean? Context really means really refers to how a word is used. I look at it as the linguistic environment. It is the linguistic environment within which a word is situated. Take a sentence, for example. Now, if I say Musa is a kind man, I have used man in that context, and it means a male adult, for example, But if I say that Musa has been asked to man the engine room, I've still used the word man, but the meaning has changed because we are dealing with a different context. All right. So context in in linguistics simply means how a word is used. All right, so to contextualize in the wide general meaning of the word is to consider something together with the situation, the events or information related to it, rather than considering it alone. You know, the context can be just the situation within which something happened. That is another a different meaning. But in linguistics, talking about English language, when we are considering the context of a word, we are considering the words that come before and after it, which help us to understand what it means. So you try to look at how the word is used. Let's look at the two examples I have given. Musa is a kind man. You know, we are talking of just a man as in a human being when talking about a human being. All right, that context gives the meaning to you because you have looked at the context within which we used the word man. But when we say that Musa has been asked to man the engine room, of course, the context shows you that the meaning has changed. And so you can figure it out by just finding a replacement. If you are to man an engine room, what other words can you use in place of man the engine room? What comes to your mind is to control the engine room, to manage the engine room, to take charge of the engine room. At least the meaning of the word can be figured out from the context. And that's what we mean by the contextualization approach. This will help you in no small measure in figuring out the meanings of unfamiliar words. Now let's proceed. Let's go further. Now the steps to take. Let's look at the steps you need to take in order to get it right. Of course, there are different techniques, different steps that different persons have given out, and even you as an individual, as a candidate, as a student at the secondary school or the university, you already have some techniques, some steps, the way you approach a reading passage. But the most important thing is for you to use the one that works for you. But you need to understand that the approach you can use successfully for WASSCE and NECO comprehension passages may not work for Jamb passages because there is a slight difference. Number one, Jamb passages are short, but somehow more sophisticated. All right? Because don't forget that Jamb is an exam that you take, that will qualify you for your entry into a university. So it's a little step ahead of what you have been having in the secondary school. Number two, Jamb questions provide options, but very tricky as well. In fact, the fact that Jamb questions provide options that you can pick from should simplify the Jamb comprehension. Ironically, they don't. This fact doesn't necessarily simplify it because the Jamb passage itself somehow sometimes appear to be sophisticated. All right, we will look at it and see how we can unlock every Jamb comprehension passage. So these are the steps you need to take. Read through the questions first. All right. I've always recommended this for summary writing. Somehow is also useful when dealing with comprehension questions because a similar principle applies. Because reading through the questions first will give you a prior, will give you some prior knowledge about what you are going to look for in the passage. So you already know what you are looking for. When we get into the actual process of attempting the questions, you will see this practically. Now let's look at step number 2. Step number 2, read the passage. You must read the passage with concentration. You must read for meaning. You must read with a purpose. And you must read for discovery. What do we mean by all this? Now, because most students find an average Jamb comprehension passage a little bit sophisticated or complex. So you need to concentrate. You need concentration. You know, concentration is really all that you need to understand any difficult task, because concentration engages your mental faculties. And when you concentrate, then you will be able to see, you will be able to read between the lines, you will be able to actually decipher the hidden meanings of words, and the ideas that the writer is expressing will just jump out at you, all right, as you concentrate and give your full attention. Now, reading for meaning here is really quite simple. You have already read the questions, and as you read, you begin to look at the context clues, all right? Because what the question does is to give you the keywords that question has used, and these keywords you will be looking for what they really mean in the passage, and what the examiner is actually asking you to do. So you will read for meaning, and you will read with a purpose. Reading with a purpose means that you are already looking for the answers. All right, that is your purpose. You are already looking for the answers, and that will actually help you to reduce the time it will take you to answer questions in that section. Because one of the difficulties that confront candidates in the Jamb exam is management of time. If you're able to manage your time well, of course you will have the time to answer all the other questions, and then you will have better chances of scoring high. And then the next one is that you have to also read for discovery, because at this point you need to discover the answers, to the questions you have already read. So that's exactly what it means to read for discovery. Then step number 3, read the questions again. This time you are ready to answer the questions one by one. Having read the passage, you go back to the questions and you begin to take the questions one by one. So if you read question 1, you are going back to the passage, and that takes you to step 4, which is to scan for the evidence in the passage before picking the option for each question. Scanning technique is a method of reading that enables you to look for a specific piece of information. Just like when people go for a scan in the lab, they are looking for a specific piece of information, either in the body, or in the womb of a woman. All right? So that is step number 4. Let me leave you with these 4 steps, and then let's look at the keys for unlocking a Jamb comprehension passage. As I said earlier, we need to find a way to actually demystify the Jamb comprehension passage, simplify it. And the only way to do that is to use some scientific methods. or linguistically proven method of trying to simplify a passage. The first key is to understand the subject matter and the thesis statement. Every piece of writing or passage usually has a topic, what the entire passage is all about. And you will find the subject matter in the first paragraph. So you have to look for the subject matter in the first paragraph. That will show you what the writer is really discussing in the entire passage. And when you discover this, it's going to help you to really simplify the whole process. So you read with the mindset that you want to know the subject matter. So you will read with a question in your mind. What is this passage about? Then you need to find the thesis statement, which is a specific sentence, usually within the first paragraph, which is known as the introductory paragraph, is a single sentence that conveys the writer's central message. There is always a message that a writer is conveying in a piece of writing. And this message, this overriding message, this viewpoint, this opinion of the writer is contained in a sentence that is known as the thesis statement. Now, when you identify the thesis statement, it will help you in answering a question that has to do with choosing the suitable title. If you're asked to choose the suitable title for the passage, then you'll be given 4 options, for example. So you have to pick the option that relates to the aim of the whole passage rather than part of the passage. And if you are able to identify the thesis statement contains, it contains the main idea of the whole passage. So if you pick the thesis statement, it will help you in picking the suitable title for the passage from the 4 options you have been given in the question. Now, the second key for unlocking a Jamb comprehension passage is what we call the topic sentences. Topic sentences are the main ideas of the paragraphs. Each paragraph contains one topic sentence which contains the main idea. It's similar to the thesis statement, but what the thesis statement is for the whole passage is what the topic sentence is for each paragraph in the passage. However, the topic sentence may not be a very major or reliable key for unlocking a Jamb comprehension passage, because Jamb comprehension passages are usually short and may not contain many paragraphs. So you may not be able to have the opportunity of trying to look for the topic sentence for each paragraph. For instance, the passage we are going to look at, the first passage in 2019 Jamb English Comprehension, contains 2 paragraphs. So, the body of the passage itself contains just 1 paragraph, and in that very paragraph, you find the writer discussing different ideas, different major ideas. So sometimes, looking for the topic sentence may not really be the best key to use in such a situation. But let me give you what replaces the topic sentence when we are dealing with the Jamb comprehension. Now, this is why. Now, don't mind my writing here, all right? Okay. All right. So we are looking at keywords. Keywords become the key that you require to unlock the Jamb comprehension passage. How do you get the keywords? You get the keywords from the questions, right? Let me just use Q to represent the questions. You know, each question gives you the keywords, and even if you do not find the keywords from the question, the instruction itself, you find it from the options. There are keywords that will give you what we call context clues. Context clues, all right? You know, a clue is something that gives you an idea uh, about something else. A clue, context clues. So now these keywords will serve as context clues. When you are reading the passage, you know what the question is looking for, and you use the keywords in the comprehension question as key words or context clues when you are reading the passage, and that will help you not to waste time in reading, because the context clues will show you exactly which part of the passage contains the facts relating to the question you are going to answer, and that will help you to read just that portion and then figure out the answer, and you go back and give the answer. Then the next is the structure. The structure of every piece of writing also gives you the key to unlocking the passage, or gives you idea as to what is really all about. Now, what do we mean by the structure? A structure is anything that is made up of different parts. So you need to consider the different parts of the passage, and then have the big picture, because all the various parts make up the whole passage. So you are considering all the parts in the manner in which they make up the whole. For example, every passage has, some passages have a title, which is even separate from the passage itself. If you have a title, then you consider the title of that passage. If it doesn't have a separate title or headline, of course, you can locate the title, you can identify the title within the first paragraph, where the writer introduces the subject matter. Then you can figure out your title from the subject matter and from the thesis statement. Then you have the body of the passage, and then you look at the first sentence or the first and second sentences. That, of course, gives you a clue. Then you look at the concluding sentences. If you have several paragraphs, then you can look at the first or the first and second sentences in each paragraph, and then you look at the concluding paragraph, having already looked at the introduction within the first paragraph. So this gives you the structure of the write-up, because in every piece of writing you have a definite structure. You have a title, you have the introduction, you have the body, you have the conclusion. These are the various parts that make up the whole passage, and looking at these various parts will help you in unlocking the comprehension passage. I hope this is clearer to you. Now, having looked at all this, let's now go back to let's see. Okay, let's go back to the actual passage, the comprehension passage. All right, let's read the instruction. So here you can see, read each passage carefully and answer the questions that follow. But remember the steps we outlined. Read through the questions first. So let's go back to the questions. Question number 1. All right, let's read through all the questions first. Question 1, which of the following is true according to the passage? A. Snakes are not in the polar regions. B. Snakes are endemic on every continent. C. There are countless number of snakes on the Republic of Ireland. D. Snakes are seldom seen at the Antarctica. Now, by reading this first question, we already have a picture of what the passage is all about without even reading a single sentence in the passage. That's how powerful the questions themselves are in helping you to understand what the passage is about, giving you some prior information about the passage even before you start reading them. And this is really very important for understanding. Question number 2. The most notable thing about snakes, according to the passage, is that they A. abound in Gombe and Plateau states. B. Are versatile in reproduction. C. Eat big but seldom. D. Exist in families. Question 3. A suitable title for this passage is A. Feeding habits of snakes. B. Some characteristics of snakes. C. Snakes are legless, cold-blooded reptiles. D. Species of snakes in Nigeria and other lands. All right. Now let's get to question 4. Okay. Question number 4, it can be inferred from the passage that snakes are A. Heterogeneous creatures. B. Voracious cow eaters. C. Great insect eaters. D. Homogeneous reptiles. Question number 5, it can be deducted from the passage that snakes have A. No external auditory organs. B. Visible internal locomotive organs. C. No visual sense of measurement. D. Large appetite for antelopes. Now, these are the questions. And what do you discover, after reading the questions? You have discovered, you have some clues as to what the passage is all about. The passage is about snakes, and all information in the questions relate to snakes. All right. Okay, so let's now go to the passage. We read through the passage, and don't forget, we have to read with concentration. We have to read with meaning. We have to read with a purpose. We have to read for discovery. Now let's begin to read. Like all reptiles, snakes are cold-blooded, or more correctly, ectothermic rather. They cannot produce their own body heat. Instead, they rely on the sun to heat their bodies. Because they do not rely on energy from food to generate body heat, snakes can survive on an extremely meager diet. Some wait for months between successive meals, and a few survive by eating a large meal just once or twice a year. When they do not eat, snakes swallow their prey. When they do eat, rather, snakes swallow their prey whole rather than biting off small pieces. Many snakes have specialized jaws that enable them to swallow animals that are far larger than their own heads. Although uncommon, some snakes such as the African rock python have been observed eating animals as large as an antelope or a small cow. Okay, paragraph 2, you can see that we have just 2 paragraphs making up the entire comprehension passage. With over 2,000 species belonging to more than 10 families, snakes are a large and successful group. They owe much of this success to their versatility. Snakes occupy habitat ranging from underground burrows to the top of the tree to ocean depths as great as 150 meters. They are found in every continent except Antarctica, and although they are most abundant in tropical areas, many survive in regions marked by extreme cold. The only places without snakes are parts of the polar regions and isolated islands such as the Republic of Ireland and New Zealand, as opposed to places in Nigeria like Plateau and Gombe states in the northern part where there is a large population of snakes. And we have a footnote showing us that this passage was adopted from Microsoft Encounter of 2009. All right. Now, having read the passage, we now go back to the questions, and this third time, as earlier discussed, we are going to take the question one by one, and we are now ready to answer the questions. Now, I must emphasize here that this depends on your speed, your reading speed. You know, if at the first reading of the passage, you are yet to fully grasp the meaning, you may need to read it again, probably 2 times, or until you actually understand what it is about. But if you follow this simple method, after reading the questions, you already have some ideas about what the passage is about. Then after reading the passage, you should be able to have the full picture of what the passage is about. And then it is now time to take the questions one by one and use the techniques we are discussing here to try and identify the answer. Let's do that just now. All right, let's do that quickly. Now, question number one, which of the following is true according to the passage? A, snakes are not in the polar regions. Now, the passage didn't tell us that snakes are not in the polar regions, but in some parts of the polar regions. So we can eliminate this. So now you can see that we can use the elimination method. With the information we already gathered from the passage, we can begin to eliminate options that do not really give us the answer. B, snakes are endemic on every continent. Of course, we can eliminate these two because we already saw in the passage that snakes are found in all continents except the Antarctica. But if we say snakes are endemic on every continent, then of course that might not be true, because unless we are saying that the Antarctica is not one of the continents. All right. Then C, there are countless number of snakes on the Republic of Ireland. Of course, this contradicts the information we already have. Then D, snakes are seldom seen at the Antarctica. We can agree that this is true because we are already told that snakes are found in all other continents except Antarctica. So if someone says snakes are seldom seen at the Antarctica, it's not far from the truth. However, we are not just going to pick the answer because it sounds reasonable to us. We have to go back to the passage and confirm. We are looking for the evidence. So that's exactly what you need to understand. Then let's look at where we can find information. Here we can see Antarctica is a context clue. All right, where we can see occupy habitats. We are looking for where the snakes live. Is one of the things that can confirm to us. Okay, so let's see. They are found in every continent except Antarctica. So you can see. And although they are most abundant in tropical areas, many survive in regions marked by extreme cold. The only places without snakes are parts of the polar regions and isolated islands. So you can see they are talking of parts, which means if some parts of the polar regions are without snakes, then of course some parts may have. So that's why we eliminated the option. Now, one thing we can find quite clearly is that they are found in every continent except at Antarctica. So we can agree that snakes are seldom found in the Antarctica. You can hardly find them in the Antarctica based on this evidence. So here we have evidence, and like I said before, the answers to the comprehension question must be based on evidence. Of course, this is not the one we are talking about. So the evidence is here, except Antarctica. So we have seen the evidence. So we now go back and we can ratify the option we had earlier chosen. So here, what do? We ratify this option here. Okay, we can ratify it. So that becomes our answer. So you can see. So let's erase some of these things. Okay, so let's now go ahead. Question number 2. The most notable thing about snakes, according to the passage, is that they abound in Gombe and Plateau states. We can beat our chests and conclude that this is really correct, because Gombe and Plateau states were mentioned in the passage just as an afterthought or in citing examples. And by the way, it was cited as the last sentences in the passage, and there was no other place in the passage that this was mentioned. If we are again, there was nothing the writer said about these places that shows that is the most notable thing about snakes. We are not told that the snakes in Gombe and Plateau states are special, or there's something special about them. Okay, so that may not really be an option we can take immediately. We will look for evidence. B, are versatile in reproduction. Of course, we came across the word versatile in relation to snakes, but not in terms of reproduction. There's nothing there that shows us something about their reproduction, that they are versatile in reproduction. All right? Well, we may still have to look at this. Versatile in reproduction, how? All right, we shall find out. Then C, eat big but seldom. This we also saw that they eat big but seldom, but there was nothing the writer said about this making them the most notable creature, or this feature being the most notable feature about them. The writer didn't say anything of any such thing. Then D, exist in families. Well, this may likely be close to it, but let's go back to the passage and look for the evidence. Let's look for the evidence. Okay. Now we can wipe this so that it doesn't really confuse us. Okay. Now, with over 200 species belonging to more than 10 families, snakes are a large and successful group. See, there's something now that the writer is saying about them. This particular feature makes them successful, very large and successful. And that has to do with they are having over 2,000 species belonging to more than 10 families. All right. All right. 10,000 species. This could be their versatility in terms of, yes. And if they have species, has to do with reproduction. So it's not really necessary that we must have the word reproduction clearly stated. All right. Before we actually understand that, uh, that is possible. All right. So, however, let's look at other options. But one thing also is that with over 2,000 species belonging to more than 10 families, so the fact that they exist in families, is also one major thing. Snakes are a large and successful group. They owe much of this success to their versatility. Snakes occupy habitat ranging from underground burrows to the top of the tree to ocean depths as great as 150 meters. So their versatility here is in terms of being able to occupy different types of habitats, not necessarily in terms of reproduction. The one thing that is clear that we can find here is the fact that they exist in more than 10 families. That, of course, is what the writer has praised. Is part of what the writer has said is successful about them. They have a large family and they have 2,000 species and they belong to more than 10 families. There was nothing specific about their reproduction. All right. So with this, we can go back and ratify one of the options. And the option we have to ratify here, let's look at it, is option 12. I mean option D, the existing families. We have a clear evidence about that in the passage. Not that these other ones are not found in the passage, but this is the only place where the writer is praising the snakes. He is highlighting their quality as being successful. Then notable is also a positive quality. So they are known for this. That's one good quality about them. They exist in families. One of the features. Okay, so let's now go take a look at question number 3. A suitable title for this passage is A, Feeding Habits of Snakes. Of course, we have come across their feeding habits, but that is not the only thing spoken about them. We saw their habits in terms of where they live. They are being versatile in being able to occupy different habitats from the depth of the oceans to this. Those are also aspects of their behavior or features. B, some characteristics of snakes. I think this is more. This tallies more with, the idea of the real subject matter, what the whole passage is about. The other one gives us something for a subtitle. One aspect of the passage is the feeding habits of snakes. C, Snakes as legless, cold-blooded reptile. That's also one aspect of it. And besides, we don't have any evidence that the writer even gave us direct information about snake being legless, even though it is. But we don't have to import ideas from outside the passage. D. Species of snakes in Nigeria and other lands. As I earlier mentioned, information concerning where you find snakes in abundance in Nigeria was mentioned rather like an afterthought, and it was cited as examples and even in contrast to some other ideas. So we cannot conclude that this is really the title. It's not what the whole passage is all about. So it's more convenient for us to go for option B, because everything about the passage is giving us characteristics of snakes, and we have different characteristics of the snake in terms of their feeding habits, in terms of their physical features, in terms of where their habits, in terms of where they live, and so on and so forth. So, you know. So now let's go to question 4. Question 4, let's wipe these marks so that we will not be confused. All right. Okay, so it can be inferred from the passage that snakes are A. Heterogeneous creatures, B. Voracious cow eaters, C. Great insect eaters, D. Homogeneous reptiles. Now, this is where you need to have a large active vocabulary. Your vocabulary refers to all the words you know in a language, and an active vocabulary refers to those words that you can use, that you know their meaning and you can use them correctly in a sentence. So if you have a large active vocabulary, you will understand that heterogeneous is something that is of different kinds, different types, different species. And we know that this was obviously stated concerning snakes. So it's likely we are going to go for this. But let's look at other options. Voracious cow eaters is not only cows that they eat, so that may not really be quite correct. Great insect eaters was never mentioned at all in the passage, so we don't go for it because it's like importing idea from outside the passage. The homogeneous reptiles is completely untrue about the passage because the snakes have thousands of species, so they are really heterogeneous creatures. All right. So now let's go back to the passage and look for our evidence. Don't forget that we always have to do this, although some of the questions that we need to infer, that means that we need to really figure out from the various information in the passage, may not necessarily give us all right. So let's go back to the passage. Go back to the second one. With over 2,000 species belonging to more than 10 families, snakes are a large and successful group. So they are really heterogeneous because they are made up of different kinds. That's the meaning. So we can really confirm that this is exactly what this means. All right. Let's really. So question number 4. We can now confirm that this is really correct. So you can see how we look for evidence, and when we find the evidence, we confirm our answer, we ratify it, so to say. Now, question number 5. It can be deducted from the passage that snakes have A, no external auditory organs. There's nothing in the passage that tells us this, so we can eliminate it. B, visible internal locomotive organs. We are not told about the internal organs. The only thing we were told about the organs is that the snake has large jaws that enable them to swallow prey that may be larger than their own heads, but nothing of the internal organs was really mentioned. Even the external organ is not necessarily, no external auditory organs. We are not told that. C, no visual sense of measurement. There was nothing about their visual, their sight that was mentioned to us. So we don't look for ideas from outside the passage, even though this may, if you may have done learnt in biology that these are characteristics of snakes, but we were not told this specifically in the passage. So don't yield to such a temptation. Then B, large appetite for antelopes. Of course, here we were told something about the snakes eating antelopes. So that is a clue. And of course, with the type of question, it can be deducted. Let me give you one example. If you visit a family and you find a man slapping his wife and kicking her with his legs, you can deduce from that scene, that ugly scene that you have seen, you can deduce from that, you can reach certain conclusions that the man is a wife beater, right? Or that the man oppresses his wife, or that the man is guilty of domestic violence. You can infer from that single incident. So it's possible. And if that is possible, let's get back to the passage and see if we can really ratify this, because we have seen something about the, okay. Okay, so that's the last sentence in paragraph 1. Although uncommon, some snakes such as the African rock python have been observed eating animals as large as an antelope or a small cow. All right, so of course, this is a clue, and this can conveniently enable us to ratify the answer, the option we have chosen. We can, they have large appetite for antelopes, if they can be seen, swallowing or, devouring an antelope, then we can conclude that they have large appetite for antelopes. All right. So that's how it has been in today's video. We have been able to look at how to answer Jamb comprehension questions, and we have done our illustration with the 2019 Jamb English questions. We took only the first passage because we didn't want to gloss over it. We wanted to look at it very critically, and I believe we have done this. I hope you have learned some useful things from today's lesson that will enable you to score high in your Jamb comprehension questions. If you have not subscribed to this channel, don't forget to do that, because when you subscribe and click on the bell icon, you will always receive notifications whenever new videos are uploaded on the channel, and you have free access to all the videos we upload on the channel. So, thank you for being part of today's episode. See you in the next class, and bye for now.